Welcome to the Law, Your Money, and You. I'm Roberta Saphire, an attorney in Sharon, Massachusetts.
And I'm Camille Barron, a financial coordinator, also in Sharon, Massachusetts. And Roberta, today we're going to have a very interesting topic, and we're going to find out more about how the legislature works and how bills become laws.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, but it's probably similar to other states. And we are so fortunate to have with us Representative Lou Kafka. He represents 4 districts, but I'll let him tell you that. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me today. I do represent all the parts of 4 towns. Technically, my district is the 8th Norfolk district. It includes all of Sharon, half of Stoughton, parts of Walpole and Mansfield.
Those are quite busy districts, too. It's not like they're rural or this or that. They're very good. And you've been over 20 years, right?
This is actually the 27th year I've been serving.
No kidding.
Oh, boy. And you come from a long family of lawmakers and public servants.
Attorneys, we'll just leave it at that. I'm the first to actually make the law.
Well, tell us what
At
you
least
do.
work towards making the
Tell
law.
us what you do.
That's our subject, how a law becomes a law.
Well, actually, legislation usually starts out as an idea. Someone comes up with an idea of what they think should be on the books in Massachusetts. Every 2 years, we now have a 2-year session, and we're in the first 5 months of the newest session. And right now, I would say, although I don't know for sure, but I think there are approximately 6,000 bills before the legislature, the Great and General Court. All those bills were filed on a timely basis, have been indexed by the clerks in both the House and the Senate, and now have been assigned to committees that have jurisdiction over the subject matter.
How do they keep track of so many?
That's the clerk's job. And it takes them a little while to index everything, first as a docket number and then as a bill number. They assign the bills to the proper committee, and now it's up to the committees to schedule hearings on each bill, because each bill that's filed on a timely basis is guaranteed of a hearing where people can come in and testify either for or against the bill.
The committee's made up of the
Members of the
elected
House and the Senate,
Oh.
and at that point, after the hearing, the committees can elect to either recommend a favorable response, which means the bill will move on, an unfavorable response, which means we technically vote to a vote against the bill based on the committee's recommendation of ought not to pass. They can study the bill and amend it out of committee. They can refer it to another committee that they think has jurisdiction over the subject matter. Also, public safety, judiciary often overlap.
How many committees are you on? I know you're on more than one.
No, I'm actually I'm on one committee right now, the Rules Committee. My position, I am now the Assistant Majority Whip, and I'm the floor leader for the 4th Division of the House. The House is split into 4 divisions with approximately, there's 160 members, so there are 40 members in each division. And so if people in my division have questions relative to anything that's going on with our sessions, with hearings or anything, they would come to me, and I would try to set them straight, give them an answer as to what their concerns are or anything like that.
So that's over the whole legislature.
That's in the House.
In the House.
Yeah.
So are there any priorities or criteria that the committees are required to use as they evaluate?
Each
these
committee establishes their own rules of how the committee works. Again, they're required to have a hearing on each bill. The reason we have so many bills is Massachusetts allows citizens to go to their legislators with an idea and ask them to file legislation based on whatever they come up with.
And do the legislators have to, as long as there's nothing really out of whack with it, or do they have a choice?
You just answered your own question. As long as there's nothing they feel is out of whack with what the idea is, because there could be. It's never happened with me when people have come to me with ideas, but it could happen where someone has an absurd idea and that I could not in good faith file.
I would imagine one of the things the committee has to look for is the fact that some of these citizens might be submitting something that's very local, very specific to their community, and it has to be determined whether it's really going to be.
No, but we do have local approval bills that are filed all the time. Whether it's something that's passed a local town meeting that pertain just to, say, the town of Sharon or the town of Stoughton. So we get, those are filed and they have to go through the same process. And we appear and people from the towns will come in and testify in favor of a bill that, just to get back on track with that. So the committee holds its hearing. It will then offer a ought to pass recommendation with a bill should move forward. From that point, the bill, if it has anything to do with money, will go to the Ways and Means Committee if it deals with state money. And Ways and Means then will look at the bill and they make their own recommendation, whether it should pass or not, whether they should hold it up and study it some more, whatever the case may be. And once a bill clears that hurdle, or it's not a money bill, the committee then will refer the bill to the House Committee on Steering and Policy, which I chaired that going back 4 years ago for 6 years. That was the committee I chaired.
Give us an example of a bill. There's probably so many, but like one that sticks out in your mind.
Well, we passed
Probably
2 weeks
zillion.
ago a pregnant women's Bill of Rights, for lack of a better term, which laid out that women who are pregnant had certain rights in the workplace that employers should
Honor.
adhere to.
That's interesting.
And
Now, if there's a federal bill, if there was a federal bill like that, which I have no idea, would you still have need for a state bill?
usually not, no.
Oh,
If
but there
there's a
is
federal
no
law,
bill.
then the federal law supersedes the state law in most
Oh.
cases.
So were we one of the first to pass that?
I think, we're not the first, but we're one of the first.
Yeah, Massachusetts is usually the forerunner.
Yeah,
Well,
one of them.
I
one
was
of
just
them.
about to say, what about the health care?
Well,
did that go?
back when Mitt Romney was governor,
Oh, yeah,
we passed a health care reform bill. It was a forerunner to Obamacare. And that's been working as far as I've been able to observe fairly well. More people have been enrolled in a healthcare program. It's been fairly affordable, and unfortunately other things drive costs up.
Was it contentious at the time to pass it in Massachusetts?
It was, but it wasn't overly contentious like it's been down in Washington.
Yeah.
I think some of the problems, I mean, I did some taxes years ago when that first came out, and if, say, a single fellow didn't have the health care on his taxes, he would have to pay a penalty. So I remember saying to him, they have a mass affordable. I said, go with that, and then you won't have to pay the penalty, and it'll save you money. And so that was interesting how it went into effect there.
Kind of interesting that maybe it was more successful in Massachusetts than it is federally.
And I think most residents in the Commonwealth are sleeping a little easier than people in other states because of what's happening in Washington, because they know that they can still rely on the state.
Yeah, we were pretty good.
law.
We have. How is our treasury? Do we have? At one point, it was we had more money in the
It's
treasury.
in a state of flux.
Oh, it's in a state of flux.
Well, we don't know what effect what happens in Washington is going to have on
Oh, it will have.
revenues. Right now are not meeting expectations, so we're in a bit of a shortfall for the current fiscal year, 2017, where we're going to have to, within the next month, probably deal with that shortfall.
Who owns the parking lots in Boston? Is that the city of Boston?
No, there are private and public
Oh,
lots.
those, because these are, we always said, there's the business you should be in, the parking lots.
Yeah. But the city owns and the state owns some
Oh,
lots.
state owns some lots too.
Yeah. But getting back to
Yeah.
where we are from a revenue standpoint, next year where the revenues probably won't be meeting expectations either. So we're right now in the process of passing an FY18 budget. The House passed one a couple of weeks ago. Senate is starting their debate on Tuesday for the FY18 budget. And we're going to have to make adjustments for the next fiscal year.
So the fiscal
also.
year starts July 1st,
Right,
right? Just
right.
the same as towns do.
No, you hear all the time watching the news about things that maybe Congress wants to pass or doesn't want to pass. And one of the things you hear is, well, we're going to leave it up to the states. I'm thinking like a Medicaid expansion, right? What is the interaction between the federal government, let's say they have funds that they allocate to the states, and also, suppose they pass a law and the state doesn't want to pass that law. Suppose they disagree with it, then what happens?
It all depends. There are penalties that may be involved. You mentioned before that Massachusetts is usually at the forefront.
Always. yeah.
So in many cases, there are the issues that come before us we've already dealt with. Not all the time, but as they come up, then we deal with them. We try not to react too quickly without knowing all the facts. And that's how I handle myself, just generally speaking, in the legislature. With all those bills that come before us, and we hear from our constituents on a broad range of bills.
Yeah, one of the bills that Massachusetts passed, and is the forerunner in which we, our program, is active in, is the Massachusetts Association Regression Center, the MARC at
Aggression
Bridgewater,
Reduction Center.
at Bridgewater State University, against cyberbullying. That schools, public schools, have to have a plan in place because these kids are killing themselves from being attacked that way. But that must have been passed. That's not that long ago that law was passed.
There are a number of bills that deal with bullying, whether it be cyberbullying or just being.
But we're the
yeah.
forerunner in that.
Yeah.
We have people coming from. We were told by Bridgewater State University, people come from all over the country to the Bridgewater State University to see what they're doing, and it's all because. See, people say, "Oh, what do they do? What do they do up there?" That's what you do. You passed a beautiful law and requirements that other countries come here to see how it works.
Well,
so there's another one.
They choose to come here and to see how it works.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a requirement that's built into whatever
right.
we pass.
We even have
Right.
people from foreign countries
Yeah.
who are aware of this.
Right, well, it's
yeah.
time they
message.
come here. Remember that
Yeah.
Caitlin? She was
Yes.
a Fulbright scholar
From Hungary?
Yeah,
Hungary.
yeah. And she came here, the country paid for her to come here for a year to study what we do in Massachusetts here and take it back.
Before our time runs out, I just want to try to at least get through the steps, the rest of the steps.
Oh, I'm
the bill
sorry,
has to-
go
No,
ahead. We'll have you back.
So a bill goes to steering and policy. That committee schedules the bill to go before the House for debate. Each bill then has to be read 3 times. And when we, and during that debate, amendments can be offered and the bill can change during the debate of those 3 readings. A bill then is engrossed in the House, it goes to the Senate, and if it started in the Senate, it's engrossed in the Senate, goes to the House. It has to pass the other branch in the same form, or it will be referred to a conference committee. And that's 3 members of the House, 3 members of the Senate. They get together and negotiate the differences between both branches' rendition of the bill. That happens, it goes back to each branch for approval, and then re-engrossed and sent to the governor. The governor then has the ability to veto the bill, send it back with an amendment, pocket veto it, and not do anything, and it will become law after 10 days. If he sends back a veto message, we then have the opportunity to either sustain or override the veto. If we override the veto, the bill becomes law over the objection of the governor. So that's what happens. It's a bill. It's a process that was designed to be deliberate, although it can move quickly. Bills are through quickly, but it was meant to be deliberate, so that what the final outcome will be something that won't be overly outrageous.
Sounds good.
Interesting. Oh, there's certain laws, like, to be controversial, I don't mean to get into a topic that's controversial, but certain things like the marijuana legalization, gay marriage. So we are kind of ahead of the curve in those. And yet, I think with the marijuana legalization, it's still not legal federally. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Recreational use.
You're talking about recreation.
Yeah.
And it's causing a problem because it's not legal federally with the medical marijuana to some extent also. But certainly the recreational marijuana can be problematic because the federal government is still working through the issue, and it's illegal federally. In many cases, as I've been reading reports, many cities and towns have been voting to opt out of the recreational marijuana law, which is part of the bill that was passed.
When you say opt out, you mean they want nothing to do with it?
They don't want recreational marijuana.
Oh, they just don't want it. Okay.
Shops to opening in that community.
So it seems kind of interesting that you could be in Massachusetts
You want to open a shop? No?
smoking
Yeah.
pot,
Yeah.
and you'd be doing something legal, but yet you might be breaking the law in terms of the federal law.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the federal authorities are looking specifically to bust anybody, unless they were dealing
Yeah.
or distributing. And that would, I don't think those people, and the way the law is written, there are certain amounts, I don't remember off the top of my head, but there are amounts that you can legally have of recreational marijuana without breaking the law. And I haven't heard of any cases where the feds are looking for people who, excuse me, are adhering to the state law that was passed, even though they're breaking a federal law.
Oh, you've got to be kidding. Story on that marijuana. There was this 80-year-old woman, and the feds were there arresting her because their dog said that this package she got from Georgia or somewhere was loaded with marijuana. So they go down the station. She calls her attorney, a local attorney here, Glenn. They open it up. It was tea. So they had a problem. I don't know what the legal results were there, but they scared the poor woman.
Thinking back in all my years in the legislature, the one issue that I was most heavily lobbied on was creating a state cookie.
A state cookie?
Official state cookie. And we
You've got
would
to be kidding. Official state cookie.
Unbelievable,
What was
really?
it? What kind of cookie was
well,
it, though?
I'm going to have you guess.
Oh.
But for at least 6 weeks, we would come into our offices, and at least a couple of times a week, we would find packages of either Fig Newtons or Toll House cookies that different groups would leave us in lobbying for that particular cookie to be become
to eat.
the official cookie of the
I
Commonwealth
don't
of
like
Massachusetts.
Fig Newtons.
No
So,
kidding.
so do we
What
have
happened?
one? I can
We
see the
do.
Toll House cookie. Is it the Toll House cookie? I must have read that somewhere.
Yeah.
With the Toll House cookie in Whitman.
Whitman, yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So was it unanimous?
Yeah.
No, really?
I know a lot of people like Fig Newtons.
Well,
I
compared to
never
Toll
did.
House, though, I don't know.
Toll
How
House,
can you go against anything that has chocolate in it?
Right.
That's true.
right. Yeah. That's really. So we just had a couple of "you got to be kidding" stories already. And
Yeah.
It's not even, you
Oh, I
gotta be
like
kidding.
that, the Toll House cookie. And then, do other states have state
Oh,
cookies?
I could do a whole show, not today, but I could bring
No.
in information about the official
Well, there's flour.
cookie and the official soup, the official.
Soup?
Oh, take a guess.
Well,
Clam chowder? Or should
Oh,
I say chowder?
clam chowder.
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 oh, chowder.
But
clam
there are
chowder.
different.
To me,
There are
chicken
different
soup.
categories that either
Oh, yeah, New England clam
in
chowder.
most cases through legislation, but not all. There's been an official determination of what.
Who comes up with these things?
And then there's a state bird, right?
Oh,
There's-
we all have state birds. What's a state bird? Mockingbird? No.
No,
Robin?
off the top, off the
Oh,
top of my
I
head,
forget
don't know.
too. Little bird, anyway.
But we could do a whole show on just what those
That's
things are.
interesting. That's interesting. The on birds. You know what I always wondered. Like we're New England because we're named after England, but does anybody ever come up with they want to change the names of streets because even towns because like there's Concord, New Hampshire, Concord, Mass, and whatever town is here is also in Rhode Island.
Streets would be a local determination.
Oh, really?
That would be something the town would have to deal with. They name the streets.
Has anybody ever come up to the house and said, we want to change the name of the town?
Not to my knowledge.
They want to secede from the state?
There have been, I think, in the past, although I don't remember
Now
the
you've got to be
specifics.
kidding. Seceding
But
from the state?
But there have been people out in the western part of the state that have wanted to secede from the state.
No
But,
Well, so many
and I
areas
think,
there.
and this is just coming into my head, I don't know for sure, but I think either Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket at some point wanted to create their own.
Well, they're like
Yeah.
an island, but the ones out in the western part of the state, there's so much open space, and they probably have the same issues, but just to themselves. There, that's well. There used to be a fellow. What the heck was his name? From I forget what his name was. When I went to law school, half the people there were from the State House. And there was one guy out from west, and he was from a farm. And when he got into the class, what you'd hear was a cock-a-doodle-doo. and he was very very proper looking and very when he talked, but so you really didn't think the noise came from him, but it did. It's crazy. Every now and then I'd get a phone call and I go hello, and I'd hear this noise at the other end of the phone. Isn't that funny?
You know, the
this
other
thing
thing
was
that-
probably
that-
good. I know. Is that the
I'm sure you
funniest thing?
experienced this in law school too, when you were doing research. But sometimes when you read the laws that are on the books, it's obvious that they were written 100 years ago.
There are
Because
quite a few.
I was
Yeah.
looking at one this morning. It was on Facebook, and it had to do with things that people could do in the town that would be, that you can't do certain things that are going to bother other people. And the first several sections of it had to do with, you can have goats and horses and all these
Oh, yeah.
animals, but they can't be in the street blocking traffic and all those sorts
Yeah.
of things.
Well, there's another thing too, but part of it, we have the common law and the statutory law, and the common law was brought from England, and the statutory law is what you do. You put it on the statutes, and a lot of people think you're saying statue, but it's statute, T-U-T-E, which is interesting. And some of the original laws I was looking at, our original legislature was the English Parliament, wasn't it? That
Well,
because they ran the place here.
Many, originally, many of the legislators in Massachusetts were English. They, and you know, when they came over from England to escape whatever persecution they were escaping from, and established the Commonwealth with a legislature. Some of those people, their training, their education was
Yeah.
based out of England. So a
It's
lot of it
just-
came from English common law.
Yeah, I
And-
find it fascinating. I did some research on Bridgewater, because they have, and if you ever drive by Bridgewater, they have a Scotland cemetery. And you say, well, why? Well, people from Scotland there. That's why. I mean, it was a simple answer. But isn't
Yeah.
that funny?
I
So,
always wondered, what's the difference between a commonwealth and a state?
probably nothing.
Again, it's something I knew at one time, but
There were three, I think we have
Yeah.
3 Commonwealths.
Virginia's one.
Virginia,
Massachusetts.
Pennsylvania,
And
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Maybe it's just if you have a long name, you're a Commonwealth.
Virginia's not a long name.
But how about just in Massachusetts, you have districts and you have municipalities? So
No,
what's
no,
the
there are cities and towns.
Yeah.
Those cities and towns make up legislative districts.
Oh,
And by statute, each one of our districts in the House has to be made up of at least 40 to 45,000 people.
that's
That's
fascinating.
so. That's why towns are split, because towns aren't. You know, every town has a different population. So when you're looking to establish
Yeah.
the legislative districts, Sharon may be a little over 20,000 people now.
Fascinating. Fascinating. We
and
have
s-
to wind up.
And
Yeah.
half of Stoughton is about another 8 to 10,000, and then my parts of Mansfield
Oh,
and Walpole get me to the
so how many
to-
people do you represent?
approximately 42 to 45,000.
Well, we're reaching them all.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
we
good.
thank you,
That's
thank you
good.
for being here. You really, and bless you. Bless you, you've got a wonderful
Thank you.
family. We didn't even go into
Oh,
the whole
my goodness.
family. We
Like
like
this
to,
is
do that.
also,
yeah.
it's really, it can be mind-boggling to try to
Yeah.
follow everything. And then you have the cities and towns, you got the state, you got the federal, but you seem to have it all down pretty pat, obviously. After
Yeah.
how many years did you say?
Well, altogether, I've been involved in the legislature, because before I was
30.
elected, I worked for Bill Keating when he represented Sharon.
He did our
for
ribbon
12
cutting
years.
ceremony 40 odd years ago.
But I
Yes,
worked for him for
that's right.
12 years, so
Boy, God
this
bless
is my
you.
38th or 39th
Wow.
year.
We're
You
very
both
lucky,
interested
and
in
you
politics?
only look like 42.
Yeah.
That's a beauty.
That's-
Wind up.
Sure,
God
I wish
bless
I
you.
looked that
Thank
good.
you.
No,
Thank you so much.
We
It's
really
quite all right.
appreciate it. We'll
Thank
definitely
you.
want to have
Thank
you
you.
come back and
Okay.
continue. And to our
Yeah.
viewers, if you are fascinated by this topic, as we are,
Absolutely.
we encourage you to get in touch with us, because we really would love to have your ideas about this topic or any other topics. And the best way to do that is send us an email. You might see us around town too, that's okay. But either way, we'd love to hear from you, because remember, this is your show. The law, your money, and you.